NBC News announced this week that reporter David Shuster would return to air on February 22nd. Shuster suspended earlier this month for a comment he made while filling in for MSNBC's Tucker Carlson. Here's what got him into trouble.
But doesn't it seem like Chelsea's sort of being pimped out in some weird sort of way?
Well, after that remark, NBC offered a personal apology to Mrs. Clinton and her daughter, and so did Shuster.
I used a phrase, some slang about her efforts. I didn't think that people would take it literally, but some people have. And to the extent that people feel that I was being pejorative about the actions of Chelsea Clinton making these phone calls, to the extent that people feel I was being pejorative, I apologize for that.
All right, a 2-week suspension for David Shuster. Patricia Murphy, appropriate?
No, I don't think so. I think you have to look very carefully at the relationship between a campaign and the media, and when a campaign becomes offended by something and threatens to pull out of what would be a very highly rated debate if they don't issue a public apology, I think you're just dancing in some very, very uncomfortable waters, in my opinion.
So you think NBC caved into the pressure here?
I think they did. I think that would have been more appropriate to handle it internally and issue a private apology. I'm not sure if that was one of the offers put out by the Clinton campaign, but it makes me very uneasy to see a reporter who is also kind of dancing this reporter personality hybrid to have to issue a public apology for something that he said.
What about it, Jane?
Well, you know, I agree with that point to an extent, except for him to say, you know, politically like a politician. To the extent I offended anybody by calling her a pimped out person, I mean, there's not a lot of interpretation on that. I think probably what happened was MSNBC got in trouble for comments that were pretty misogynist that Chris Matthews made about the Clintons, and the Clintons were like, hey, this is a pattern, shape up, and I think David Shuster sort of took the fall for Chris Matthews.
Well, it was also on MSNBC that Keith Olbermann used the same phrase talking about General Petraeus' testimony in front of Congress about the effectiveness of the surge, and he didn't get in trouble for that, Rich.
Clear double standard there.
So you can say it about a general, you just can't say it about a former president's daughter.
You know, a Democratic candidate who might be in a debate is not complaining about the pimping out Petraeus comment, so it's going to get a different reaction. Plus, they want Keith Olbermann to be out there saying offensively left-wing things like that. So, but Shuster, I think, was totally innocent. You know what he meant. He wasn't suggesting anything untoward about Chelsea Clinton. It wasn't a firing offense. It wasn't even a suspending offense. He should be on the air.
So did the network go too far, Cal?
Of course they did. Look, not only on that network, but many others. Hosts are always beating up on President Bush. One called him this week a fascist. He's been called a warmonger, all of these other things. There's no discipline in that. They encourage them to say these things. This allowed the Clinton campaign, and especially Hillary Clinton, to embrace victimhood again. She's very good at this. She wants to have it both ways. I'm the strong woman leader, but I'm also a victim. Watch me cry. So I am woman. Hear me roar.
I think Jane, though, is right about some of the backstory here. I think the Clinton campaign thinks Chris Matthews and some others at MSNBC are clearly tilting against them, and I think that helped create the reaction against
But nobody's watching that network, and if the Clinton campaign hadn't brought it up, who would know? It's like the tree falling in the woods without a camera.
Well, Jane, is it sexist, or is it just a network caving in to pressure from a political candidate?
I think that they were guilty of misogyny. I think that a lot of what Chris Matthews said, that Hillary Clinton wouldn't have been elected to office had her husband not fooled around, I mean, that is misogyny. And this comment is not exactly friendly to a young woman. I mean, there is sexism in those two comments. Whether they, I mean, I agree with you, though, that they probably bent because they were facing a debate pullout.
Guys like Olbermann and Chris Matthews, they say a lot of outrageous stuff. I mean, they're designed to be lightning rods. When you take Shuster, who's supposed to be a straight-down-the-middle political reporter, and ask him to host a show like that, are you asking for trouble, Patricia?
You're absolutely asking for trouble. You're asking them to push the boundaries beyond where they should be. And Chris Matthews compares it to playing tennis. He aims for the line. He wants to hit the chalk. And David Shuster, as a straight news reporter, needs to keep it well inside. But you put him on Chris Matthews' show, and you're asking for trouble. One quick thing about Chelsea Clinton, I do feel for her. I mean, this is a woman who's graduated from Stanford and Oxford and can make her own decisions about supporting her mother. So just as a little support for her, I think she's not being pimped out or anything else. She's making her own decisions.
Well, was the network scared, I guess, Cal, of the Clinton campaign and retaliation from it?
Yeah, we've talked about this before on the show as well. There's the dirty little secret, the things that go on behind the scenes that a lot of viewers don't know. There are representatives of campaigns who call Today's show, Good Morning America, and others. You want Hillary Clinton on the show? Here are the questions we do not want asked. And here are the questions that you are allowed to ask. And if you don't agree to this, you won't get her. So, okay, we'll agree to it. So this goes on all the time.
So is that why Barbara Walters came to Shuster's defense?
Well, it could be, but look, I agree. I think with Patricia, I do think that when you take a straight reporter, and the point you were making, and try to make him or her a little edgier for the ratings and the demo, the younger people, then you run the risk of getting exactly what has happened in this case.
You know, we have a climate with Ann Coulter, repeatedly saying,
Yes.
Be Hussein, as our next president, and he would only be in there because he's half black. I mean, there is incendiary stuff that we are now tolerating. I'm not for legislating against this, but the climate says, push it, go for the line, push it, and it's getting pretty ugly.
Rich?
I think there's more tolerance for the offensively left-wing things that are said at a network like MSNBC, because the democratic world that a lot of these people swim in doesn't react against it. The media world doesn't necessarily react against it.
All right. We are going to take one more break, and when we come back,